how do we track the trash and hopefully find a way to clean that up? If that's of interest to you, then I have today's perfect guest, and that's Graeme Somerville-Ryan, founder of Eyesea. You may see him on the, on LinkedIn. It's prominent. Eyesea is a nonprofit organization with a mission to map global pollution and maritime hazards. Without proper data on maritime pollution, what and where it is, effective solutions are hard to find. Graeme, thanks for coming to the podcast.
Chris, great to be here.
Yeah, I've really been looking forward to this, especially as we're in the middle of summer and we're going to talk about something that, at least for me, is very much, in the forefront when people head to the beach. So let's jump right in. How did you come up, with this idea for the app? I think it seems like intrinsic and like it's one of these things you go, this should have been around forever. But how did this come about? I'm very curious.
Yeah, we actually had that, was one of the first pieces of feedback that was only vaguely insulting, was like, this is so simple. An idiot could have thought of it. How come it doesn't exist already? It must exist already, which I suppose was meant as a compliment. I guess the background, I've been in the maritime sector for about 13 years, working on PR and comms with a whole range of companies. And we'd been doing a bit of work on the removal of plastics from ships, single-use plastics and water bottles, which really only makes life harder for seafarers. MARPOL regulations, all the sort of compliance that the industry has to do. And it got me thinking about, was this actually, how could we do more than just compliance? What could we do, and what role could we play that was unique? And I did a bit of Google research, and the more I sort of looked into the pollution, maritime pollution, the more it became painfully obvious there's no data on this at all. The data that is claimed is either from minute amounts of information or based on models that are based on other models, which go back to the minute amount of data. And it occurred to me that the industry has ships and the industry has seafarers. And if we use ships and seafarers, we can actually fill in a large, blank spot on the map, so to speak. And that's sort of how it started. I guess the story goes is in early 2020, perfect timing, I flew to Hamburg as Lufthansa was canceling flights to talk to the guys at ChartWorld about this, as there was sort of a bit of a sounding board. And I was talking to Oliver Schwartz, and after 15 minutes, he sort of told me to stop talking. I know how to talk, and said, well, stop talking, Graeme. I'll build your app for you, or I'll pay for the build. And that's how Eyesea started. ChartWorld very kindly coughed up the funds to find a development team and begin the build of version 1. And then what we uncovered was a huge desire within the industry to do something about this problem. We had, I think, 800 ships offered to the project in about 8 weeks. And this was off 2 A4 pieces of paper, like, Graham's idea for Save the World. But I think it was safe to say, as soon as we talked to ops guys or CEOs or anyone who had served at sea, they saw this as a problem, and they knew what was missing. And this is only something our industry can do. No one else has the reach. No one else has the resources. It's either us or it's no one. And that was pretty quickly accepted by everybody involved.
And that's really interesting because, like you said, you've identified a relatively simple problem, on the surface, and it came at it with a simple solution: tracking. Talk a little bit about one of the things I always like to ask people is kind of when you started. You had a vision, and when you sat down with the folks at ChartWorld and actually, had the 2 pieces of paper, Graham's vision and stuff, as you evolved here in the 3.5 years and during COVID and during those times, has the vision stayed mostly the same, or do you think has it expanded? Has it gone differently, than what you have? Because a lot of times, sometimes in the journey of building something out, or any journey, you think, okay, I'm gonna do this. I mean, I always thought, I would stay forever in broking, and kind of it got to a point, and then I pivoted, and the last thing I would have thought 5 years ago is to be a podcast host and work at a fairly large maritime data SaaS company. So, how is that pivoted for you as well within this product?
It's become far more complicated, we'll put it that way. I mean, when we started off, version 1 of the app was really a proof of concept. Would we collect data, and what would this data show? And my worst nightmare for version 1 was that we would collect 20,000 photos, because I knew I couldn't look at 20,000 photos. We collected 120,000 photos. We mapped a pretty significant bay in the global scheme of things. And we took 45,000 photos in 20 days. The biggest limiter on our data collection was the size of the memory on the phones that we were using.